Win, Lose or Draw is the 9th episode of the first season of Everybody Loves Raymond, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I discuss various aspects of the narrative. I wasn't sure exactly how much I'd love this one because it seemed like it was going to be about poker, but it's not actually about poker. And it starts off absolutely fine, not my favourite intro, but we have Raymond coming home with some burgers, some takeout, and he's whinging about the communication. It's not the best intro, it's absolutely fine. And then the main narrative kicks in after the titles. Frank comes over and tells Raymond he's going to be playing poker with him. He doesn't ask him, he tells him. Raymond's not exactly enthusiastic about it, but he does it anyway. They go down to Nemo's after hours. It's quite interesting to see that set when it's closed, and Raymond ends up playing poker with Frank's poker buddies. And he's doing really well. But then Frank tells him to stop, and he doesn't listen. And we get an anecdote about how he shoved breakfast cereal up his nose as a child. He seems like things are going in his direction. He's very confident. And then cut to Ray coming home later that evening. And that's all we get for the poker scene, and is actually really quick. So if, like me, you're not a huge fan of card games, don't care for gambling, that scene itself is actually still really enjoyable, but it also doesn't take up that much time within the episode. Ray comes home, middle of the night. He confesses to Debra while cleaning his teeth that he lost a lot of money. We're talking thousands of dollars. Over $2,000 if I remember correctly. And obviously Debra's shocked, devastated, determined that Ray is going to get the money back. And while they're in the kitchen, Debra tells Raymond, go and get the money back from your father. And he refuses, but then Marie comes in with Frank, demanding that Frank gives the money back. It seems like the problem's going to be solved really quickly. Debra tells him to take the money, Marie tells him to give the money. It seems like it's going to be problem solved, over and done with. But both of them, Frank and Ray, have their own principles. Ray says that, he's a man of his word. This is a lesson that he had to learn, and it also wouldn't be a good lesson for his children. Not that his children are going to find out about this. If he could just lose the money and then get it back without any problems. That's not a good life lesson, and that's fair enough. Frank, on the other hand, his lesson is basically the same, but from the other perspective. If you lose money to somebody, you can't just give it back to them. That's not a good lesson, and he feels that as Ray's father, he's in the right to teach him that lesson and not give him the money back. And we have this really lovely moment, and I really thoroughly enjoyed this moment the following day, where Marie comes over to try and give the money to Debra without the guys knowing. And it's just a very sweet bonding moment between the two of them, where they're sitting at the table and Ray comes in. And as Ray points out, they don't sit and smile together, so something had to be up. And he knew straight away that Marie was trying to give Debra the money. But there was just something really sweet about that moment. And with Marie disclosing to Debra that she actually had $46,000 in her own savings. And it was just a really lovely bonding moment where Marie was being open with Debra, giving her the money. It was very sweet. We don't see that often between the two of them, but we do every now and then. And things are still not going to plan because Raymond doesn't let Debra take the money. And then Robert comes along, Robert the police officer, who is furious that his own father and brother would gamble, decides to give them a talk. And it entertained me when he was playing good cop, bad cop. I thought that it was very funny, even though it's a very serious conversation. Well, it's not so much of a conversation as more of a lecture, but it's a very serious lecture, but with humour, and I thought it worked very well. But what actually put a lump in my throat and made me rather emotional just for a brief moment is something that Frank said. And I quote, "You should be able to go to your father and he should be able to make it okay." And I thought that was really moving. And he gives Raymond the money back. And he gives it back not as the person to whom Ray lost the money, but as Raymond's father who could resolve this problem. And I thought that was so moving and so sweet, and it was a little bit emotional, just for a minute, but it was very, very well done. And then we have the final scene with Raymond and Debra playing a strip card game with Raymond taking off his tie and being cold. And it was a very light-hearted way and comedic way to end the episode. I really enjoyed it. Definitely a really fun episode and one that I found to be very entertaining, with some really great moments between Frank and Raymond and also Marie and Debra. I don't think it would ever be one of my overall personal favourites, but that being said, there's nothing about it. I had a lot of fun with it. Win, lose, or draw is definitely a really great episode.